Fish life history strategies is based on the fundamental demographic trade-off. Demographic trade-off and selection response to different kinds of environmental variation. Okay? Yan. Opportunistic strategy. Okay? Ito. Opportunistic. Okay? So if you look at this, in an opportunistic life history strategy, they tend to have a small t. Okay? Ito, small t. Age at maturity. They have a small fecundity and a small juvenile survivorship. So, the opportunistic strategy maximizes the colonizing capacity in the environment. Environment that change frequently or stochastically on a relatively small temporal and spatial scale. So ito mga opportunistic spawner, example, mga anchovies, yung mga bulinaw, they have high reproductive effort. They have high reproductive effort. They mature early. Okay? They mature early with a small body size. Another thing about the characteristic ng mga opportunistic spawner, opportunistic fishes, they have low per batch fecundity. Yung fecundity nila, mababa. Okay? Age at maturity, mababa. Which means, early sila ma-mature. Early sila nag-spawn. Okay? Since early sila nag-spawn, kung ma-recall nyo, young, meaning, would mean low fecundity. Okay? Low fecundity. Yung juvenile survivorship, mababa din. Kasi, pag young, low fecundity, smaller eggs, smaller feeding yolk, or yung nutrient, juvenile survivorship, of course, mababa. So to compensate for this, ang mga opportunistic spawner, they have multiple spawning bouts per season. Ito naman yung pang-compensate nila. They have multiple bouts. Kumbaga, sa isang spawning season, several times sila nag-spawn. So because several times sila nag-spawn, mas mataas yung survivorship, of course, tumataas din. Yung number of juvenile na nagsusurvive per spawning season, madami din. Kasi madaming beses sila nag-spawn. So nakita nyo kung paano ang organism nagko-compensate. Okay? Although multiple spawning bouts per season, little parental investment, and short generation time. Okay? Little parental investment. Hindi sila nag-i-invest sa pag-protect ng kanilang offspring. Okay? So yan, opportunistic. Now let's talk about periodic. Ito. A periodic strategist, they tend to have larger age of maturity. They have large fecundity. Okay? Mataas yung kanilang fecundity. But smaller juvenile survivorship. Smaller juvenile survivorship. So, itong mga periodic strategies, fishes, the environment is favorable. Favored in environment having a large scale, cyclic, or spatial variation. Although there is a variation in the environment, but the variation takes longer to change. Okay, so yan. So what are the example of fishes that are periodic strategies? Example of periodic spawner, salmon, clopids. Ang clopids, ito yung mga tamban sa tigigibong sardinas. And other marine species with moderate reproductive effort, which they tend to delay maturity. Delayed maturity. And yung mga isda na large body size, which contribute to high batch fecundity. Little parental care, and long generation time. Kasi ngayon, yung age of maturity nila, mataas. Okay? So yan, periodic spawner. Equilibrium. Equilibrium strategies, they have large age at maturity. They have large juvenile survivorship, but with smaller fecundity. So these fishes live in a favored environment with low variation in habitat. Low variation in habitat and strong direct and indirect biotic interaction. So since it is equilibrium, okay, the environment is relatively stable with fine scale spatial variation. When we say fine scale spatial variation, the change in characteristic of the habitat, spatial means space. Okay? Spatial space. the change in their habitat as a result of environmental variation caused by sabihin natin season ay hindi masyadong affected. Fine scale. Okay? Example of fishes that are considered an equilibrium strategist, ito yung mga nest-building coral reef fishes. Since they are nest-building, they tend to have low reproductive effort. They tend to have a variable body size. And age at maturity producing low batch fecundity. Low batch fecundity. Since low batch fecundity sila, they exhibit parental care. They exhibit parental care since the offspring have long generation time. Okay. So while the three apices of the triangular model correspond to the extremities, yung extreme sa mga group na yan, there are many intermediate example representing the trade-off between the different factors that determine the overall reproductive success in many environments. Okay? So yan. Let me continue. Okay. Intersexes and unisexual species. So the sexuality of teleost fish. When we say teleost, ito yung modern group of fish. So sexuality of teleost fish is extraordinarily complex with the genetics, environment, and other endogenous and exogenous factor that play a role in some species. So the genetic determination may include factors located dun sa kanilang tinatawag natin na autosomes. Autosomes or sex chromosomes. Whether or either heterogametic males or females. So karamihan sa mga species that are gonochoristic individuals. When we say gonochoristic, these are individuals, either male or female, throughout their reproductive life, they have separate male and the female. Gonochoristic. They have distinct sex. Male or female. Although merong mga juvenile that exhibit hermaphroditism. So the gonads of some fishes develop first as ovary before differentiating into testes. So even when this individual never became functional female. Anong ibig kong sabihin yan? That during its development, female siya at a certain stage, early stage. As it developed, nag-differentiate into male, that early stage of its development, hindi siya naging functional na female. Although hermaphroditism is almost unknown sa mga ostariophysads. Ostariophysads, ito yung mga freshwater fishes. Ostariophysads are dominant freshwater group. Ang hermaphroditism is common in marine fishes. Yung mga tinatawag natin na marine actinopterygians. Wait lang. Wait lang, madali lang.
Mabuhin ko na daw to. Truth is real and so
Okay. So let's continue. Nakikita pa ba yung presentation?
Yes po, sir.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, although hermaphroditism is almost unknown sa group of dominant freshwater fishes, hermaphroditism is common sa mga coral reef fishes such as the labrids, yung sea breams, yung sparids, yung mga taga Camarines Norte dito, Camarines Norte, they are familiar of yung abo. Yung isda na abo, that's sparids. Okay? Yung sirenids, yung mga yung mga grouper. Okay? Or yung mga, generally, yung mga reef fishes. Ito yung mga isda na colorful. Okay? So, hermaphroditism may be synchronous, wherein both parts of the ovaries and testes are present, fully developed. Yung tinatawag na ovitestis, which mature together. Or yung type of hermaphroditism na successive. Successive in the sense that individual starting as a male and becoming a female as it grow. Okay? So, one of the potential advantages of being synchronously hermaphrodite is to allow self-fertilization. Self-fertilization in a sparsely distributed population. Population that does not seem to occur in an environment na favorable. Okay? So, successive hermaphroditism, meron tayong tinatawag na successive protandrous. Successive protandrous because male or the fish the fish is born or hatch as a male first, then as it develop or as it grow, nagiging siyang female. Okay? Yan. So, etong successive protandrous, yung mga isda or fishes that are successive protandrous is much more at a premium for females. premium in females in a sense that they can accommodate a large number of eggs. The small male, having fertilized the egg of its older and larger conspecific. Conspecific means of the same species, can be said to become a female itself. Can become a female itself. So yung smaller male, eventually, magiging siyang female. Magiging siyang female. Okay. So, itong successive hermaphroditism in which a smaller male transform into female is found in many coral reef fishes, such as the grouper. So, for instance, yung grouper spawn and produce more males. Okay? Eventually, magiging siyang female yung mga in-spawn niya. Okay? Now, individuals that are protogynous. Protogynous, ito naman yung kabaliktaran. Protogynous, they are born female. Along the course of their life, nagiging siyang male. Okay? Yan ang mga protogynous. Usually, a protogynous individual or protogynous species, individuals change from plain colored females to brightly colored male. So in this instance, sa mga protogynous, larger males may be less susceptible to predation. Less susceptible to predation because itong mga protogynous tend to look for mate. They tend to look for mate, of course female, in a different territories. Okay? Different territories. Another thing about is in defending the territories of the female. Yung kanilang mate. Okay? So in other reef fishes, like the anemone fish, the small size of the territory, like a single anemone, makes the reproductive potential of a large female, making it the more important. So, siguro nahiling man nito so movie na yung animation na Finding Nemo. Okay? So, yun. Yung Finding Nemo. Si Marlin, yung ama ni Nemo, kang nagadanso sa iyang ina, yung ina ni Nemo, ang consolation naman ni Nemo is so sa iyang ama, si Marlin, magiging siyang Marlene as a replacement of mother ni Nemo. Because yung male ng anemone fish, Amphipherion ocellaris, the male, kapag nawala yung female mate to protect the young, yung male, magiging siyang female. That's why, so ama ni Nemo, si Marlin, magiging niyang ina. Yun ang consolation ni Nemo. Hindi siya mawawaran kay ina. Okay? Yan. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the larvae. Okay? So, biologically, the larval stage or its equivalent is probably the most thoroughly studied period of the early life history of fishes. This studied stage in the life history of a fish result from the identifiability of larvae, their relative abundance, and their importance in determining the distribution, and later on, the abundance of many species, particularly of commercial values. Yung mga commercially important fishes. Okay? So, larval life history or larval life of a fish generally begins as the fish hatches from the egg and switches from internal yolk reserve to external planktonic food source. So, ang larval stage niya begins when the fish started to feed or shift from the external environment. Okay? So, the free-swimming young may still have a large yolk sac, which is referred to as the free embryo. Free embryo, Eleuthero embryo, or the yolk sac larva. And it ends until the yolk is completely absorbed. Okay? Next, ano naman itong tinatawag natin na fry? Bakuyan suprinito. Okay? When we say fry, is a non-specific term na ginagamit for advanced larvae or early juvenile. Early juvenile with yung tinatawag natin na swim up stage. A swim up stage often refers to the free embryos or larvae that were initially in the nest but have grown capable of swimming above the nest. Yung tataas or bababa sa kanilang nest. Okay? So yan. Yan yung tinatawag natin na swim up embryo. Swim up stage. Okay? So marine teleost larvae are extremely diverse, which reflect an array of specialization in form, okay, in form, pigmentation pattern, and behavior. So yung body length nila at the beginning of the larval stage is about 4 to 5 times the diameter of the egg. So, majority ng first feeding larvae that feed externally, exogenously, are 3 to 6 millimeter in length. So most species reach a maximum larval size within 10 to 30 millimeter range. Bakit mostly we're talking here about length? It's because, yun nga, it's difficult to determine the age of the fish in the larval stage. Except kung kukuhaon mo yung kanyang otolith to age. Okay? So the basic organ system are developed during the larval period. One obvious feature ng larva is the myomere. The myomere that correspond roughly to the number of vertebrae in adult. So that's why the first and common step in identifying the larvae is by counting the myomere. Myomere yung muscle. Yung segmentation, which correspond to the number of vertebrae sa adult. And then yan nagbabago. Okay? Gut shape and length are also important features. Okay? So yan. Gut length. So kung titingnan nyo, iba-iba yung gut length. This one. This one is a flat fish. Okay? Ito, trigger fish. Makikita nyo. Meron siyang isa. Monocantidate. Itong iba, hindi ko na alam. Okay? So the gut is coiled in higher teleost. Yung relative size of the head, the jaw, and the eyes are important taxonomic characteristic. Taxonomic character. The sequences of fin formation can be a useful character at specific or higher taxonomic levels, including the larval teeth. Okay? Head spine. This one. spine. Okay? Okay, now, the larval stage continues until the development of the eggshell skeleton. The larval stage continues until the development of the eggshell skeleton, the fins, and the organ system is already complete. So the development ng larvae, the median fin race developed first. The median fin race developed first as a short, fleshy interspinous ray. Yung true fin race and spines develop later between the interspinous ray. If you look at this one, ito yung pigmentation. The pigmentation in larvae is an important characteristic in identification sa taxonomy. Pigmentation differ from species to species. Similarly, yung scale. Makikita niyo itong black na to, the scale develop first along the lateral line. So this is the lateral line. So the scale develop first along the lateral line. So this is the lateral line. Ayan. The scale first develop along the lateral line near the caudal peduncle. This is the caudal peduncle. So dyan nag-start mag-develop yung scales. Okay? So makikita nyo yung black na yan. That's how the scale develop. Okay? So once the full complement of the scale is attained, the number remains fixed. Yung scales. The number of the scale remain fixed. Yan. So the early life history stages in fishes. The larval period subsequent to the yolk sac stage. Okay? Ito yung yolk sac stage. Kung saan, makikita nyo, from the term itself, yolk sac stage, meron pa siyang yolk. Kung saan, yung source of nourishment niya galing pa sa yolk. At the end of the yolk sac stage, ito na yung tinatawag natin na pre-flexion stage. Ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina na yung kanyang yolk reserve naubos na pero hindi pa siya nakakatapos dun sa yolk sac stage. Meaning, hindi pa fully develop yung kanyang jaw. Hindi pa fully develop yung kanyang mouth. So therefore, hindi pa siya pwedeng kumain. So pag ganun ang nangyari, ma-starve. Ma-starve yung isda, hindi siya fit mabuhay. Pwedeng maging bansot. Hindi na lalaki as fast as the normal. Okay? So the larval period subsequent to the yolk sac stage falls into 3 stages related to the flexion of the notochord during caudal fin development. Okay? After the yolk sac stage, yung stage of development ng larvae madi-differentiate siya depending on the flexion of the notochord. Pre-flexion, kung makikita niyo, yung notochord niya, straight. Okay? The flexion stage, kung saan yung notochord niya, this one, nag-bend pataas. That's the flexion stage. Post-flexion, yung notochord niya, yung tip, nawala na. That's the post-flexion stage. Mahapot ka mo. So ano naman? Bakit kailangan nating pag-aralan yan? Bakit kailangan pag-aralan yung stages sa life history? Okay. Yan, meron naman yan na bearing sa management ng fishing ground. Sa fishing ground, meron tayong tinatawag na source and sink. Source ng propagules. Source ng larvae. Meron naman tayong tinatawag na zinc. S-I-N-K. Zinc. The source and sink is an important feature of a fishing ground so that we can determine which of the specific environment of the fishing ground needs to be protected. Of course, kailangan lahat. Maggagawa kayo ng or mag-establish kayo ng marine protected area. The establishment of marine protected area is mandated by the law. Yung Republic Act 8550, yung Philippine Fishing Ground, as mandated by the 10654. Kung saan, sinasabi doon, ng municipal water ng kada LGU, kailangan mag-set aside sila ng 10% of the fishing ground to be declared as marine protected area, kung saan bawal mangisda. So, aalamin mo, saan ba yung appropriate? Dapat, alamin mo, alin ba doon yung source and sink. When we say source, doon yung lugar kung saan yung mga isda nangingitlog. Okay? Doon nangingitlog, then tigdi-disperse na lang. Ang sink naman, kung saan nagsisettle yung mga eggs and yung mga juvenile. That's the sink. Anong implication yan? Para hindi maubos yung juvenile mo, yung larvae, kailangan i-protect mo yung source. Kasi kung ang gagawin mo is you protect the sink, yung source hindi, eventually mauubos yung isda mo. So you need to determine the source. Paano mo ma-determine yan? Of course, you have to look at the different stages ng larvae na nakuha mo sa mga lugar na yon. Kung sa isang lugar, nakita mo lahat na post-flexion. Ibig sabihin, yung lugar na yon is considered as sink. Kasi, nadala na lang siya ng water current. Habang nagfo-float siya, because they are at the mercy of the water current, nadadala siya dun sa lugar kung saan inabutan na siya ng period na kailangan niya ng mag-settle. period kung saan yung physiologic development niya, na-reach niya na kailangan niya nang pumili ng environment. Nag-undergo na siya ng metamorphosis. So no choice na siya but to dwell on that area. So ma-identify mo yan by looking at the different larval stages na masasampling mo dun sa mga lugar na yon. Ma-identify mo kung siya ang source, kung sa lugar na yon madami yung yolk sac stage ng larvae. As the development progresses from yolk sac, preflection, flexion, post-flexion, ibig sabihin, you are moving away from the source of the egg. So you have to determine. So madidetermine mo lang yan kung alam mo yung early life history stages ng isda. Okay? Can you follow? Hello? May kausap pa ba ako?
Yes po, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Larval feeding. Meron tayong tinatawag na critical period hypothesis. So defining in larval life, a defining event, I mean, in the larval life is when the yolks supply are exhausted. Exhausted, and the fish becomes dependent on exogenous food source. So usually, in the form of a small planktonic organism, such as diatoms, larval copypods, and mollusks. Ito yung mga nagiging pagkain ng mga larvae from exogenous environment. Okay? So, even fishes that are herbivores as a juvenile and adult, they are usually carnivores as a larvae. Example sa mga rabbit fishes, yung mga cicanids. So itong generalization na to reflect the difficulty with which energy and nutrients are extracted from plants. Of course, itong mga kahit herbivore sila, during the larval development, sa larval stage nila, nahihirapan pa silang mag-digest ng cellulose, plant material. So, kailangan nila kumain ng protein, which will come from sa mga animals. Like this one, yung mga copypods, mga diatoms, mga larval copypods, and mollusks. Okay? So the potential importance of food availability at the onset, okay? The potential importance of food availability at the onset of exogenous feeding. By the way, continue ko to kasi bukas may power interruption dito sa first district from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So kaya hindi ko to matatapos bukas kung hindi ko to madidiscuss kung hindi ko to tapusin ngayon. Okay? So, the importance of food availability at the onset of exogenous feeding has greatly influenced our thinking about the sources of larval mortality and subsequent strength of year classes of fishes. Anong ibig kong sabihin nito is, ano ba yung factor na naka-influence sa success of recruitment? Okay? So there are several influential hypotheses that address the relationship between the early larval biology, food availability, and adult population size in the marine fishes. Una, itong tinatawag natin na critical period hypothesis, kung saan sinasabi dito na starvation at a critical period, perhaps the onset of exogenous feeding, was a strong determinant of later year class strength. So, anong ibig sabihin nito? The fitness of the fish depend on the period na bago pa maubos yung yolk as a source of endogenous feeding, dapat meron ng pagkain dun sa environment na yon. Yan yung tinatawag na critical period hypothesis. Na dapat, bago pa maubos yung yolk sac reserve, dapat nandun na siya sa environment na available na yung pagkain. Okay? That's the critical period hypothesis. Dapat nandun na. Okay? Second, point of no return. The point of no return hypothesis describes when the larvae, as a result of starvation, are too weakened to take advantage of food even if there is available. Such irreversible starvation depends on the larval condition and age. Yun na yung sinasabi ko kanina. Na yung naubos agad yung kanyang yolk for endogenous feeding, kailangan niya lang kumain from the external environment, pero hindi pa fit physiologically siya para kumain, which is dependent on the larval condition and yung kanyang age.